Hi. Athens and Sparta really kind of represent different threads of an idealized Western civilization. Heroic sacrifice, determination, putting your country ahead of you. These are Spartan ideas that we see, the heroism of the 300, which we'll look at briefly later, but also the idea of the well-rounded person and the power of the arts and music and all the values of the mind as well as the body, which we could see celebrated in Athens. Well, we said that these were both Greek city-states, and they were at odds from time to time. But when a barbarian or foreign power came in, we have the mighty Persian Empire, which was one of the world's largest empires, coming to fight the separate Greek city-states. Greek colonies on Asia Minor were rebelling against Persian rule, and Athens, among others, supported them. So Persia figured that this small annoyance on their western frontier, Persia was centered in modern day Iran, but had covered areas from Egypt, all of Mesopotamia, and Turkey. They figured that once and for all they would knock them out. But the Greek cities united. In 490, the famous Battle of Marathon, which of course we celebrate today with the Marathon Run, when the Greek runner took from the battlefields, which was at Marathon along the coast, and ran the 26 miles to the city of Athens to announce that the victory had come. That was the first marathon. The Persians came back in 480 again, but the Persians fought a united Greek city states, including Athens and Sparta. And the battles that won, Athens took a lot of credit for those, and Athens figured that they should build and lead a league of cities to prepare and to fortify and to control resources for another possible invasion. This league was called the Delian League. It was like an alliance of cities, but as Athens became more bold and more confident, they began to divert the league, which was supposed to be for all Greek cities, into an empire. They took money from the league and they invested it to beautify the city of Athens that had been burnt down by the Persian Empire. Sparta doesn't join the league and becomes more and more jealous of Athens' growing power. Athens builds many great buildings, including the Parthenon, which I showed you from the money from the Delian League. And of course, this is a golden age for Athens, but Sparta is quietly brooding, and as Athens' power grows, Sparta is looking at its options. The balance of power of Greece seemed to be tipping in the favor of Athens, and Sparta can't have that. So, in the time between the Persian War, which ended in 479 BCE, and a tragic Greek civil war known as the Peloponnesian War, which began in 431, we'll look at that later, there was a golden age of Greek history. In this golden age, the Greeks explored many advancements in many areas of the arts, sciences, and humanities, many of these ideas that are fundamental to Western society today. The Greeks became pioneers in Athens, particularly in the issue of politics and ethics. Ethics is exploration of what is right and good for the people. So, ethics, coming from the Greek word ethos, is the idea of what is in the best good for the most people. And politics is the art of managing power in the community. I mean, state building is a pretty old function, but is the state dominating people or does the state lead people? And what is the relationship between citizen participation, as the Greeks were really keen on, and the government that led them? The Greeks also developed the first true works of history, the father of history, Herodotus, followed by Thucydides, who comes a bit later, of the idea of recording history for memory, using sources and interviewing. The word history comes from the word inquiry, which basically means just to ask. Herodotus, the father of history, was just writing and telling stories, oftentimes uncritically, but the idea of recording and understanding and basing it on evidence was really begun with Herodotus. Math and geometry. Look at people like Euclid, of course, fundamental in the idea of geometry. We're going to explore a bit more of what the Greeks did in this field. People who would use their leisure time to try to understand more, to go deeper. Theater and literature. A golden age of theater would be that time between the Persian and Peloponnesian War. Some of the great Greek playwrights like Aeschylus, Euripides. These people are going to later on be parroted much later by a man named William Shakespeare. Shakespeare, who was writing thousands of years later, well, probably 2,000 years later, would draw on Greek themes as he rewrote the idea of drama, and that, of course, is a legacy today. Architecture and art, particularly in architecture, we see in statues, we could see the Greeks' detail and design, a sense of wonderment about the human form, architecture, which uses optical illusions to create beauty. And of course, I still think that today our idea of architectural beauty tries to imitate what the ancient Greeks had done 2,500 years ago. The first true doctors in science, although it draws heavily again from Egypt, the Greeks are going to adopt ideas of Egyptian medicine and what we call today in the West the father of the study. The first doctor was Hippocrates. Doctors today still use the oath of Hippocrates to talk about medicine and ethics, how you treat patients. We'll do a project and explore some of these a little bit later on. So, what I'd like to do right now to conclude this last piece is I want to watch a short video about the Persian War in the Golden Age of Greece, just to kind of tie this up. So we had looked at number 8, a series of wars against Persia. How did it unite the Greeks' policies? And how did this lead to a golden age? We'll eventually look at number 9 and the collapse of Athens, and we'll save that one for our next presentation. So after we do this, we'll do a short quiz, watch the video, and let's see what we could do.